So just to let everyone know who I am, my name is Stacey and I'm the communications manager at the PYA. And Jan is from BWA Yachting. He's based out of the Monaco office, I believe. But Jan is going to be giving us a very comprehensive update on all the travel regulations that are currently in the Caribbean. And obviously, Jan, you guys have offices in, is it Antigua?
We've got offices in the Bahamas, in Puerto Rico, in San Martin, Saint Barth, Anguilla, and Antigua. And in fact, I'm going to give the arrival and protocol for crew, guests, and vessel for all these destinations. For all the other islands, we do not operate that directly. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to just put you in touch with our preferred agent there that will just send you all the information you require.
Perfect. And yeah, again, I think that's just to reiterate why it's really important. If you do have a unique question that you want answered, obviously pop that in the chat with your email address, because I think it's best that Jan obviously liaises with any local representatives to make sure that any advice he gives is obviously up to date with the latest regulations. Things are changing so quickly. So, you know, I think we've been doing a couple of these webinars on travel regulations and yeah, things just change day by day. So yeah. So anyways, without further ado, Jan, I'll hand over to you just to let everyone know who's dialed in. We do have a PYA membership discount. So for all our special webinar attendees. So if you'd like to take advantage of that discount, you can go on our website, sign up as a member or renew your membership using the code WEB20. WEB20, and you'll get that 20% discount. So yeah, over to you, Jan.
Okay, thanks, Stacey, and thanks for inviting me. So as you say, I'm part of BWA Yachting. I'm the global sales manager. So I'm going to give you an overview of the island I've just mentioned before. Just to also insist on that, really the rules are changing all the time. They can even change as we speak. So it's really important that you always double check with your local agent what are the latest rules before you take any decision, even before arrival. What I wanted also to precise is that you will see it's quite complicated protocols. I try to simplify as much as possible, but the Caribbean specifically tend to treat everybody and every vessel case by case. So it's like an overview of the rules, but then after I will really insist that if you have specific question, you just send us an email, and then after we can treat it according to your specific profile. So I'm going to start with the Bahamas. I'm going to also tell you every time the last update that we received from this island, so it's clear also for everybody. So for the Bahamas, the last update that has been provided has been in the 1st of November. So the island is currently open and can welcome all the visitors from all the countries. There are no restrictions on international travels, either by planes or by boats. So to arrive in the Bahamas, the authorities will require all the travelers to get a RT-PCR test 5 days prior to arrival. Once in the possession of this test and the result, you will have to apply for the Bahamas Health Travel Visa on a dedicated website. During this application, you will also have to opt into a mandatory COVID-19 health insurance, which will cover you for the entire duration of your stay. Then after, you will have also to complete a daily online health questionnaire for symptom tracking purpose. And then after, if you stay more than 5 days, it's not the case if you stay less than 5 days, you will have to take a rapid antigen test. And all the person on yacht will be able to make arrangement for this test at the port of entry or via a dedicated website. Once you are in the Bahamas also, any visitor who has symptoms during the time of the stay will require to get a rapid antigen test and then receive a negative result before they are allowed to continue the holidays. You will have to wear a mask and always have social distancing in all the public places. And also you have to adhere to the health and safety local protocols. So that's for the Bahamas. Puerto Rico. So the last update is the 12th of November. So the marinas are open. There is the recreational boat use is allowed while maintaining a 15-foot distance. Docking at beach and nature reserve is not permitted. So for the vessel before they travel, the vessel must comply with all the USC pre-arrival and arrival requirement as per the USCG, the CBP, and the CDC regulation, but also provides 10 days before the ETA in Puerto Rico several documents, including the list of all the last 10 port calls with arrival and departure dates, crew and guest list, including embarkation date and the 1 month travel history prior to arrival, and a captain's official letter with the vessel stamp stating that there has not been any, or there is no, when the letter will be done, COVID-19 related issue on board. For the people, upon arrival, crew may be required to show proof of a negative molecular test result taken no more than 72 hours prior to arrival. Then after do a 14 quarantine and or make an arrangement to get tested in Puerto Rico. All arriving passengers must complete an online travel declaration form from the Puerto Rico Health Department. They should show a negative molecular test result taken, so no more than the 72 hours prior to arrival, as I just said, and also obtain an airport exit confirmation QR code that you will automatically receive when you upload the molecular test result to the Puerto Rico Health Department online portal. So they are quite well organized and it's quite straightforward. That was for Puerto Rico. Now St. Martin, now it starts to be a little bit more complicated. So St. Martin, the last update was the 14th of November. So there is several cases. First case, you are crew. You arrive by air directly into St. Martin. So you have to, there is a form that is called the EHAS that must be filled by every passenger and by the passenger himself. That form can be downloadable. So this applies to all the arrivals except for people arriving from a low risk location. All the location, low risk, moderate, and high risk, I'm not going to tell them because it's changing all the time. So there is a dedicated website when you can just get in and you have the list of all these locations that is updated daily. So once, getting back to the form, if the form is not filled prior to traveling, normally boarding will be denied. And if the boarding is denied, there's nothing we can do to try to solve this situation. So that's why it's very important that you fill this form prior to departure. Then, if you intend to stay in St. Martin, you must have a negative RT-PCR test taken within the 120 hours of the last leg of the trip. If you intend to join the boat and leave immediately to another island, so if you join the boat in St. Martin and just leave straight after, the test must be taken within the 72 hours prior to departure to St. Martin. Some crew are coming from very far away locations, so the authorities understand that with the time on transit, it may be difficult to meet this criteria. So in such case, embarking crew members will be permitted to come to St. Martin from countries including, but not limited to, Australia, New Zealand, the Philippines, and South Africa. To be permitted to board aircraft, such crew member must show a proof of a negative RT test taken within the 120 hours of departure from original location, as well as the seaman book. St. Martin will retest then such crew upon arrival if the PCR test is not valid or expire, and it will be at the cost of the vessel or the person. If you arrive by vessel directly into St. Martin, all vessels must use an agent. That's the first thing. Second thing, the EHAS form that I was just mentioning before is not needed for arrival by sea unless one of the crew is disembarking to stay in the island. If the vessel is arriving from a low risk country, there is no test required. If the vessel is arriving from a moderate or high risk country, an RT-PCR test is required 120 hours prior to departure from last port. Such test results, along with all the other entrance documents, must be supplied to the agent in advance before arrival. Government requires between 24 to 48 hours to grant entry once the paperwork is uploaded in a specific website. if you test in your previous last port and stop on your way to bunker, ensure that the vessel stay in transit. So it's very important that no one goes ashore. It's also important that the captain send our official captain's letter stating that the boat was in transit and so nobody went ashore to the agent, so he can send it to the authorities. If testing was not possible prior to departure from the last port, vessel can still enter in St. Martin under quarantine, with testing to be done 24 hours after, in the 24 hours of the arrival. And then after, the vessel must stay in quarantine until the negative tests are received. There are two exceptions of what I've just said. Exception number one is a vessel can come to St. Martin without testing for a maximum time of 48 hours if the vessel stay in transit, meaning that they just come for fuel provisioning. The thing is that everyone must stay on board and all the arrangement has to be done by the agent directly. Exception number two, if a vessel and guests are coming from an island that is considered moderate or high risk, the guests will still be able to depart from St. Martin by a private plane out of the FBO without any PCR test, assuming that the destination of the guest doesn't require a recent PCR test. So that was for St. Martin. As you see, it's quite complicated. Again, I try to simplify. So I'm sure it might not be super clear for everybody. So if you have more question and need of clarification, I'm happy to send you, first of all, our document that explain more in details exactly the protocols, and then after to receive your question by emails. Now, St. Barth. Which is even a little bit more complicated than St. Martin. So I'll try also to simplify. So first of all, St. Barth is part of the French bubble. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but the idea of the French bubble is that if a vessel comes from Guadeloupe, Martinique, or the French side of St. Martin, there may be no need of quarantine nor PCR test upon arrival, but this is subject to change. So this is as we speak, but is not is for sure nothing is guaranteed in the next days, weeks, or even today. The port of St. Barth recommends, is not compulsory, but recommends all of your vessels to use an agent. So prior to arrival, the vessel needs to request to the port an official written permission and should send a declaration letter with specific statements. So without this permission, the boat cannot come into the port. If a vessel, however, is coming for the first time from a nearby Caribbean island directly to St. Barth, so an island that is not part of the French bubble, so not Guadeloupe, nor Martinique, not the French side of St. Martin, everyone on board, so guests and crew, must arrive with a negative RT-PCR test done less than 72 hours prior to the vessel arrival. If one of the tests is missing, the boat will be put in quarantine until the reception of all the negative tests. If the vessel now is crossing from the USA or from Europe directly to St. Barth, there are three scenarios. So scenario number one, everybody on board must get an RT-PCR test done less than 72 hours prior to the vessel departure from the last port. The result must be negative, and then if the result is negative, there will be no need for quarantine upon arrival in St. Barth. Option two, if everyone on board the vessel did not get if there is one person on board that did not get a RT-PCR test done less than 72 hours prior to the vessel departure from the last port, and the vessel has been at sea for more than 14 days, and no one, of course, went ashore even during the fuel stop, then no RT-PCR test will be needed upon arrival, and there will be no quarantine. So there is still a case where even if nobody gets tested, you might still be able to arrive in St. Barth without having everybody a test or have to quarantine. Scenario number three. So if anyone has a symptom on board during the crossing, during the fuel stop. Yeah, there was a
background noise. Sorry, the Facebook Live video just.
Okay, I thought there was someone was popping up with a question. Okay, so scenario number three. So if anyone has a symptom on board during the crossing or upon arrival in Saint-Barth. Then the vessel must report that, of course, to the agent. And then after, a RT-PCR testing will have to be done upon arrival, and the boat will have to stay in quarantine until they get the results. In the meantime, of course, you're in quarantine. Nobody will be able to go ashore, and the vessel will have to stay, in fact, on the bay and in quarantine. If the vessel, once in Saint-Barth, stay more than 7 days or more than 7 days, crew and guests must be retested. So this is important. For the people arrival. For arrival by air directly into Saint-Barth, all travelers must arrive with a negative RT-PCR test done less than 72 hours prior to the flight departure. If guest doesn't arrive in Saint-Barth but arrive into the Dutch St. Martin, and then after they transit to Saint-Barth by vessel, or they transit to the French St. Martin and then to Saint-Barth still by vessel, the guests will be admitted in Saint-Barth with no need for further testing, as everyone will be arriving in St. Martin with a normally and accepted in St. Martin with a negative RT-PCR test, as I was saying before. But there is a but. For these two cases, in order for the vessel and the guests to be admitted, all crew on board the vessel must arrive with either an RT-PCR test less than 72 hours old, or must qualify for the Saint-Barth and the St. Martin transit rule. So what's the Saint-Barth and St. Martin transit rule? It's more something that has been put in place for when you have to switch the charter. So the idea is that the vessel must originate from Saint-Barth, then cross back to St. Martin to drop off the current guest and potentially pick up the new guest, and then return to Saint-Barth in the 48 hours. During your time in Saint-Barth, no crew can disembark, and then after you will be qualified for this Saint-Barth and St. Martin transit rule. It's permitted only with prior authorization from the Saint-Barth authorities, and of course these rules can be subject according to the evolution of the situation. In Saint-Barth, wearing a mask is mandatory for adults and children over 11 years old in all the public spaces, and there is specific restriction for the restaurant and the bars. So it's important also to inform your guests about that. Anguilla now, Anguilla is the simplest. Last update was the 14th of November, so it's easy. There is no access to mainland, so nobody can go ashore. It's only anchorage that is permitted. So there is pre-arrival and application to be done for entry and sent to the Anguilla authorities, and the authorities will deal it on a case-by-case scenario. So they are very protective on this. All yachts must be represented by a local licensed agent that will be the intermediary between the authorities and the vessel. And all arrangement and movement must be relayed by this agent as well. Vessel cannot enter into the Anguillan waters without approval of the authorities through the agent. And in addition, so in order to apply to get into these Anguillan waters, in addition of the standard people and yacht documents, you will need a negative RT-PCR test for everybody on board, dated no older than 3 to 5 days prior to arrival. The Maritime Declaration of Health. You will have to use the quarantine flag during the duration of your stay. You will have also to give the date of entry and departure and itinerary, even if you are during the of the anchorage and of all the movements of the yachts. And also you will need to have a signed declaration of understanding by the captains that has to be that is prepared by the government. Now the last one is Antigua. So last update is the 1st of November. So everybody arriving in Antigua must have a negative RT-PCR test result taken within the 7 days of the flight or arrival by sea. It cannot be a rapid test. All arriving passengers will be monitored for symptoms for a period of up to 14 days. Visitor may be required to undergo testing upon arrival or at the yacht. Arriving passenger with symptom of COVID-19 will, of course, be isolated. If you arrive by sea, the only authorized port of entry are English Harbour and Deepwater Harbour in St. John's. Everybody on board must have a negative RT-PCR test taken not older than 7 days prior to the arrival. Everyone on board will be required to complete the various health declaration forms and provide copies of this negative test. Time at sea, as well as any stop along the way, must be reported on the health documentation to be given upon arrival. It is asked for the captain to keep a log monitoring the crew temperature regularly and any symptom on board, and it might need to be presented to the authorities before or upon arrival. There is a all new protocol for the vessel when you arrived, so I'm not going to get into details because it's also tend to evolve. If all on board has a valid PCR test, there were no stop at any other port since the port of origin, and the log data indicates no COVID symptom, then the time at sea shall be deemed valid as quarantine time. If less than 40 days at sea, if there is less than 14 days at sea, then the vessel might have to remain to do the remaining days in quarantine upon arrival. Once the health inspection has been complete and all the requirements are met, then the boat could be considered, and normally will be considered, as no risk, and it will be instructed to continue the arrival procedure as always with the custom and immigration clearance, as most of you already know. Alors, I will conclude with that for Antigua. It's maybe out of the other island, the one that tends to potentially change. Sorry, the thing is that there is no guarantee at all that these rules, as I said, are going to remain the same on the short term. And in fact, the thing is that more than the other islands, the local authorities tend to treat really boats and arrival case by case. So that's why there is really no guarantee that even if you fill all of these requirements, you won't have to quarantine or the access will be granted. Just so you know, it's possible to get both rapid antigen test in Antigua for routine check of the crew and RT-PCR test for travel purpose prior to departure by air or by sea. So the tests are available on the island, and also swab tests can be done on board. So that's for these islands. Again, I'm sure it's not clear for everybody because it's a lot of information. It's quite complicated. Also, the time of the test can be different according to the profile or even the island. So we are more than happy to share any documents we have prepared so you can have a better overview of the situation in the islands. Again, for all the other islands, as we don't operate directly, we didn't want to speak on the behalf of other agents. However, we have the contacts for every island, and all the agents who are referring are quite proactive and can share all this information. Again, I cannot emphasize enough how much is important to always double check, because again, the rules are changing a lot. In fact, as I was telling to Stacy before, I was inviting for the Mediterranean to do updates like for the Caribbean, and to be honest, at that time I remember it was quite we consider it quite complicated, but now that we see how the Caribbean protocol are, the Mediterranean was quite easy compared to the Caribbean, and so that's why it's so important to really get updates and rely to your local agent for the latest information. I cannot hear you, Stacy.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, thanks, Jan. So I think that was a great update, and obviously each island has got their own set of rules, and it is quite complicated looking at it from the outside. I have seen there are a couple of questions that have popped up, so maybe I will just read them out for those who can't see the questions in the chat, and obviously for the recording purpose. So the one question that came up in the Q&A was, is it possible for charter activity in Anguilla? And I think you sort of answered that question really, that there's no access to the mainland in Anguilla. So, I mean, whilst a boat can probably, if they want to just charter in the waters, that might be allowed depending if the vessel meets all the criteria. But Jan, maybe you can answer that question.
To be honest, I don't have exactly the answer for this one. Do you think that, as you say, we assume that because there is no access to the mainland, I mean, there will be no so much request of charter. However, the thing is that for Anguilla, there is no guarantee at all. It's a case by case scenario. So that's the thing. It's even more complicated to answer this question because it really depends on the profile of the yacht, where the yacht has been before, where the crew and the guests have been before, if they have tests or anything. So
and so if someone wanted to get specific information about Anguilla from BWA, who should they contact, Jan? Should they just contact the general customer support email?
Yeah, the email I've sent you is is an email I monitor. The idea of this email is that according to the request, like I see one request from Captain Ben, I'm gonna now, for instance, I've taken the question in the chat of Captain Ben. I'm gonna put him in touch directly with the relevant person. So the idea is that if you have any question, you just write to customer service. Me or any people of my team will have a look to the question, and according to what is asked, we will directly put you in touch with the relevant agent, because sometimes it can be the Caribbean, so our headquarters in St. Martin, that will give you an overview and potentially will help you to make your charter work. If not, sorry, I was reading the chat in the same time. If not, I mean, if it's for a specific question somewhere else, for instance, in the Bahamas, I will put you directly in touch with our colleague in the Bahamas. We'll have more information. So it's a case. I mean, it's easier that you just write to customer service, and then after we just dispatch to the relevant local agent.
Perfect. And just for anybody listening, the email address, if you want to get specific information from BWA Yachting, it's customer service, one word, at bwayachting.com. So yeah, customer service at bwayachting.com.
And just so you know, for everybody, because we all still receive questions for the Med, for any other area, you can always write on customer service. Unfortunately, we do not cover the entire world. So like we receive questions for Indian Ocean, for instance, so we don't have office there. But again, I can send you the contacts of an agent that we work with there. So if at least they can provide you information. So we really try to be your point of reference if you have any question for any destination. If we have the office, we're more than happy to answer you directly and straightforward. And if we don't have the office, we always tend to try to find a solution. So I see there is someone that in the Maldives. So perfect. Yeah. Okay. So, but that's the idea. If you don't have contact, feel free to just write on customer service and we'll try to find a solution.
Perfect. I'm just responding to this chat about the Maldives, just asking if they can share their contact details. Yeah, I mean, I think that's really useful. The one thing I noticed, obviously, as you were going through the update is, and I mean, it's not just unique to the Caribbean, I think worldwide, Mediterranean-wise as well. But as we're talking about the Caribbean, how easy is it to get RT-PCR tests on the different islands? It seems like from what you were saying that it is very accessible for most of the islands, that they've got the testing facilities.
Well, the thing is that if you're talking about Antigua and St. Martin, that are kind of hub, it looks like, again, as we speak, because you never know how many quantity do they have in stock, but it looks like it can be quite straightforward to arrange a test and also potentially have it on board. But after, it depends on what kind of test are you looking for. I mean, is it a rapid test? Is it a swab test? So it really depends. And also the thing is that, as I said, with the quantity, the thing, as we speak, there is not all like the tourism is not at this peak. So we expect also that during Christmas and New Year's Eve there will be a peak of requests. So that's why we really, every time a client is taking contact with us and arranging the charter, we insist to let us know as much in advance when tests need to be arranged, so we can book and we can arrange it, because there is no guarantee that there will still be enough tests at the last minute in the next 2 weeks. So I would tend to suggest that yes, there is a quite easy access to the test, especially in the two hub, but there is nothing guarantee, and you need to either BWA or any other local agent to let them know as much in advance, and maybe also something important to get as much organized as possible, especially for your charter and your switch of charter, even more than the other years, because with all these protocols, you really need much more organization and paperwork and times for the clearance than the other years. So it's really something that my colleagues there insist, and I would like also to insist during this webinar.
Perfect. So just to confirm, so BWA, the local agents are assisting currently vessels with organizing their COVID tests. That's right.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Especially in San Martin and Antigua.
Okay.
Then after, well, Anguilla, it's closed. Well, Bahamas, of course, sorry, Bahamas, we can do it as well, Puerto Rico. So I'm focusing on San Martin and Antigua because they are the two main hubs, but of course, there's a lot of requests in the Bahamas, and there also we are quite well organized to assist.
Perfect. Brilliant. Okay, well, I think I'm just looking at the question panel now, and I think we've covered most of the questions. Just for anybody else who was listening and wanted to know who an agent in the Maldives would be, if they wanted to know what travel regulations there were, Island Sailors has just pop their contact details in the chat, so you can contact them for specific Maldives travel advice. But yeah, I don't see any other questions that have coming through. I do think your update was quite comprehensive though, Jan. Thank you.
Because it was a lot of information, so I'm happy it was understandable, at least in the big lines. So
yeah, no, very much so. Yeah, obviously anyone who's got any specific questions, feel free to pop them directly over to Jan. Over to the customer service email address. Either Jan or obviously one of your colleagues will pick that request up. And then we can go from there. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stacey, for inviting me, and it was great to speak to present.
Absolutely, thank you. And I think obviously things are changing so quickly, so yes, we'll obviously try and give everyone an update. Possibly after December, in January, as things move on. But yeah, feel free to reach out directly to the PYA or to BWA if you've got any questions. Obviously, the PYA, we don't offer the same sort of travel advice as a BWA do, but we work closely with them and other partners who we can put you in touch with. And anyone who would like to become a PYA member, please don't forget you can sign up with a 20% discount via our website using the code WEB20.
Just one thing before I forget, I said to Captain Ben, I will answer, but I've just realized that I don't think I've got his email address. So if he can just pop me an email with his email address, so I can put him in touch with, if he wants to be, of course, put in touch with our local colleague. But I'm not sure I got his contact details, so it would be better that you write me.
Okay, perfect. I can also try and send those to you. I think if he doesn't mind via his sign-up details, I can try and send those on to you, Jan.
Well, I'll let you see with Captain Ben.
Okay, perfect.
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 Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great Thursday.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.